All right, class. So I need the cartels. They're in your pocket. They're in your pocket. Thank you. All right. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
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 Gopi Jana Malabha Hiri Paradhati
Gopi Jana Vallabha
Gopi Jana Malabha Hiri Paradhati
Gopi Jana Vallabha
Yasodananda Praja Jana Ranjana Sodananda Praja Jana Ranjana Jambuna Tira Panachari Yamuna Tira Panachari Jairangu Madhura Kunya Viharuti Jairadhu Madhura Kunya Viharuti Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravidagacharya also Teta Sitashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Chalanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Sai Mukunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathurdam Ki Jai Jagadata Swami Ki Jai Munamai Ki Jai Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Murle Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Devasesha Shunyavani Pashtatra Shatari. So today we are going to read from the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Very nice. Text 29, chapter 29, text 27, 329, 27 for everyone who has a device. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Ata Mam Sarva Bhuteshu
Teshu
Bhutatmanam
Bhutatmanam
Kritalayam
Kutayam
Arhayed
Arayet
Dana
Danam
Manabhyam
Manabhyam
Matriya Vinena
Madhyarinena
Chakshusha
Chakshusha
Atamam Sarvabhuteshu
Atama Sarvabhuteshu
Bhutatmanam Kritalayam
Bhutatmanam
Arayadana Manabhyam Mantriya Vinena Chakshusha
Madhyarinena Chakshusha
Atamam Sarvabhuteshu
Atama Sarvabhuteshu
Bhutatmanam Kritalayam
Bhutatmanam Kitalayam
Arayadana Manabhyam Maitreya Vinena Chakshusha
Madhyarinena Chakshusha
Atamam Sarvabhuteshu
Atama Sarvabhuteshu
Bhutatmanam Kritalayam
Bhutatmanam Kitalayam
Arayadana Manabhyam
Manabhyam
Maitreya Vinena Chakshusha.
Madhyarinena Chakshusha
Okay.
Athamam sarvabhuteshu
Atama Sarvabhuteshu
Bhutatmanam kritalayam
Bhutatmanam Kitalayam
Arhayet danamanabhyam
Adharyanam
Maitriyabhinena chakshusha
Madhyarinena Chakshusha
अथामां सर्वभूतेषु
Athanam Sarvabhuteshu
भूतात्मानं कृतालयम्
Bhutatmanam Kitalayam
अर्हयाय दानमानाभ्यम्
Adharyanam
मैत्राभिन्ना चक्षुषा
Maitrabhina Chakshusha
Ladies.
अथामां सर्वभूतेषु
Athamam Sarvabhuteshu
भूतात्मनां कर्तलयम्
Bhutatmanam Kitalayam
आर्यादानमानाभ्यम्
Adharyanam
मैत्र्याभिन्नेन चक्षुषा
Maitrabhina Chakshusha
अथामां सर्वभूतेषु
Athamam Sarvabhuteshu
भूतात्मानं कृतालयम्
Bhutatmanam Kitalayam
अर्हयेदानमानाभ्याम्
Adharyanam
मैत्र्याभिन्नेन चक्षुषा
Maitrabhina Chakshusha
अथामां सर्वभूतेषु
Athamam Sarvabhuteshu
भूतात्मानं कृतालयम्
Bhutatmanam Kitalayam
अर्हेयदानमानाभ्याम्
Adharyanam
मैत्र्याविनेन चक्षुषा
Maitrabhina Chakshusha
Okay. Ata. Therefore.
Therefore
Mam. Me. Sarvabhuteshu.
Sarvabhuteshu
In all creatures.
in all creatures
Bhuta Atmanam.
Bhutatmanam
The self in all beings.
the self in all beings
Krita Alayam.
Kitalayam
Abiding.
abiding
Arhayet.
Arayet
One should propitiate.
one should propitiate
Adanamanabhyam.
Danamanabhyam
Through charity and respect.
through charity and respect
Maitreya.
Maitreya
Through friendship.
through friendship
Abhinena.
Abhinena
Equal.
equal
Chakshusha,
Chakshusha,
by viewing.
by viewing.
So translation. Therefore, through charitable gifts and attention, as well as through friendly behavior, and by viewing all to be alike, one should propitiate me. Propitiate, basically, for those of you who don't understand the word, means cause me to appear. That's a fancy word in English. Who abide in all creatures as their very self. So, purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
It should not be misunderstood that because the super soul is dwelling within the heart of a living entity, the individual souls become equal to him. The equality of the super soul and the individual soul is misconceived by the impersonalist. Here it is distinctly mentioned that the individual soul should be recognized in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The method of worshiping the individual soul is described here as either giving charitable gifts or behaving in a friendly manner free from any separatist outlook. The impersonalist sometimes accepts a poor individual soul as being Daridra Narayan. Let me explain that. We'll go halfway through the purport and I'll explain that. Meaning that Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has become poor. This is a contradiction. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is full in all opulences. He can agree to live with a poor soul or even with an animal, but this does not make him poor. So it's a point that Srila Prabhupada dwells on quite a bit. Of course, as we know, there was one famous personality in India who constantly used the term Daridra Narayan. It means poor Narayan, and it would really irk Srila Prabhupada to hear that particular term. And in some branches of Christianity, the same philosophy is there. What is that philosophy? That if you simply serve the poor people, your poor means in terms of money and food and everything like that, then you're serving God. And of course in India you also have that Mother Teresa, who was engaged in her mission. Of course, it turns out that a lot of her mission was to try to convince the poor Hindus to become Christians. So it was more like based upon, anyway, religious exploitation. So in any case, Prabhupada really didn't like this philosophy. I mean, Prabhupada wasn't against that we would help poor people, but really he was more in favor of charity, transcendental charity. I mean, there's charity in the mode of ignorance, where you're giving something, let's say you're giving money to poor people, or you're feeding poor people meat like Mother Teresa did. That's charity in the mode of ignorance, according to the Bhagavad Gita. But Prabhupada wanted us to give charity and to be charitable towards everyone. Even, like Prabhupada made a joke, even the Dhani Narayan, the rich Narayan. And actually it's a contradiction to use the word Narayan in terms of Daridra, because Narayan is never poor, because he always has Lakshmi with him. Except in that one pastime that we've talked about many times before, where Lakshmi left Narayan. So I guess I'll tell that story as part of class. That once upon a time, Lord Narayan, Lord Vishnu, was kicked in the chest by Brigamuni. Because Brigamuni was actually testing to see who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is in the mode of goodness. And if you're in the mode of goodness, someone will kick you in the chest and just go, Hare Krishna. So we should try that with everybody to see who's actually in the mode of goodness. So anyway, so he was kicked in the chest, and he didn't get angry. He said to Brigamuni, please accept my obeisances for having a hard chest and hurting your poor lotus feet. And so he was all right, but Lakshmi got very angry. And as a result, Lakshmi left. And so poor Narayan became, in this case, Daridra Narayan. And he kept looking all over for Lakshmi. He was thinking, where's my... Because she was so upset that he was so tolerant. Why you, my husband, why are you so tolerant like this? I can't stand being around you. So he leaves, and he's looking, where's my Lakshmi? And he hears that Lakshmi's on the Earth planet, so he comes down to the Earth planet to look for Lakshmi. And so he's looking. And eventually he finds another girl that he falls in love with. And this other girl happens to be the Maya Sita from the Ramayana story. Maya Sita, because the real Sita was taken by Agni Dev, and the imitation Sita was produced from her shadow. But the imitation Sita is actually a person. Expansion. It's like Krishna has many expansions too, especially us. Mami Vamsa Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We are all parts and parcel of Krishna. So Maya Sita is part and parcel of Sita Devi. And I'm pretty sure she must be Jiva soul, but anyway, whatever. Or Shakti, I'm not sure right now. It's not really mentioned. So in any case, so she's wants to get married to Narayan. Narayan wants to get married to her, but Narayan is very poor. And she's from a very wealthy family, and no one's going to allow a wealthy girl to marry a poor man. So he has to go and borrow some money. He goes to Kubera to borrow money, and he has to borrow some land, and he gets that land from he gets the land from Nrsinga, yeah. Varaha, that's right. Gets the land from Varaha. So he borrows the land from Varaha, borrows the money from Kuvera, and so he's in debt too. So, but still, when one's in love, one doesn't consider whether they're in debt or not. Just like many of you have mortgages that go on for 30 years, just because you're so much in love. So anyway, therefore, he gets married. There's a very happy Vivaha Yagya. And then they're going on their honeymoon with Lord Narayan and Maya Sita, Maya Lakshmi. And then they run into the real Lakshmi, and the real Lakshmi says, what are you doing with my husband? And the Maya Lakshmi, or the new wife, says, what do you mean, my husband? He's my husband, he's not yours. And so they argue back and forth. And Narayan is just so upset because he can't stand to see ladies argue. Just like men don't like to see women cry or argue. And they just give in, not because they want to give in, just because it's just like, oh, I can't tolerate the emotions. Isn't it?
Yes.
It happens sometimes. But all right, whatever you want, as long as you stop crying, you stop being angry, you stop harassing me. Isn't it?
Yes.
The men have to buy their peace sometimes. It's
It's a form of blackmail, I think.
it's like what?
It's a form of blackmail, I think.
Yeah. You better be careful, your wife might be
Oh, yes.
Oh, there's... So anyway, so that's when, so what happened is Lord Narayan, he decides to get out of there, and the way he gets out of there is he turns himself into a deity, and then the two girls, feeling separated from him, turn themselves into deities, and that's how we find Balaji came about. Venkateshwara came about. Nice story. But ordinarily, so the point I'm making is that Prabhupada really hated that term of Daridra Narayan. I believe it was like Vivekananda who used that term. And Prabhupada just like, it drove him crazy. See, you really have to understand there's certain things in Prabhupada's past that, spiritually, psychologically, gets him to preach about certain points. Like another point is, and some of these points Prabhupada was preaching against can aggravate people, so we have to be careful when we present them, such as this principle Narayan and preaching against Vivekananda. Devotees have gotten in trouble. One time, a devotee preached on the internet in India against Vivekananda, and phew, there was a whole controversy. Another thing Prabhupada said very often was about, he was criticizing Mahatma Gandhi for using the term Mahatma.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, because Prabhupada always, I mean, not always, but in many cases, there's probably hundreds of quotes where Prabhupada said, you can't rubber stamp a Mahatma. And then Prabhupada would quote the verse of the Bhagavad Gita, Mahatma Stumam Parta Davam Prakriti Vashrita Bhajanti Nanda Manaso Getva Utanam Avyam. That a Mahatma is one who's always worshipping Krishna. He's on the spiritual platform, Daivam Prakriti Ashrita. And he never stops. He has no other activity, Bhajanti Nanya Manaso, than bhajan, And so Prabhupada would get into this. So you have to understand there's many things Prabhupada said or points Prabhupada made are due to Prabhupada's own history. I mean, they're transcendental, obviously, but they're also historically based, such as this statement here. Okay, continue. There are two Sanskrit words used here, mana and dana. Mana indicates a superior, and dana indicates one who gives charitable gifts or is compassionate towards an inferior. We cannot treat the Supreme Personality of Godhead as an inferior who is dependent on our charitable gifts. When we give, in other words, we don't give charity to Krishna. You don't say, I'm going to the temple, I'm going to put some charity in the donation box. When we give charity, it is to a person who is inferior in his material or economic condition. Similarly, it is explicitly stated here that mana, respect, is offered to a superior and charity is offered to an inferior. The living entities, according to different results of fruit of activities, may become rich or poor, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unchangeable. He is always full in six opulences. Treating a living entity equally does not mean treating him as one would treat the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Compassion and friendliness do not necessitate falsely elevating someone to the exalted position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We should not, at the same time, misunderstand that the supersoul situated in the heart of an animal like a hog, and the supersoul situated in the heart of a learned Brahmin are different. The supersoul in all living entities is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. By his omnipotency, he can live anywhere and he can create his Vaikuntha situation everywhere. That is his inconceivable potency. Therefore, when Narayan is living in the heart of a hog, he does not become a hog Narayan. He is always Narayan and is unaffected by the body of the hog. So again, the verse. Atamam sarvabhuteshu bhutatmanam kritalayam aryadanam anabhyam maitriya binena chakshusha. So Om Ganat Timurandasha Gananjana Shlakya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasbai Shigaray Maha. So here, here Lord Kapila is continuing the same framework as the previous verse where he's talking about if one sees differently different living entities and makes that distinction, then one is overcome by the fear of death. That's the previous verse. Actually, we could read that verse. It's really interesting so we can hear it verbatim. It says, as the blazing fire of death, I cause great fear to whoever makes the least discrimination between himself. Whoops. Skip to a wrong. Oh my God. It just skips to the wrong. Himself and other living entities. Anyway, I know the whole
There's a
thing.
differential outlook.
Differential outlook. So it skipped to the wrong canto, to the 10th canto. That's interesting. So, anyway, so this is the continuation of the same thought pattern, which is that one should see Krishna in everyone's heart, not distinguish between himself and other living entities, and have compassion for all other living entities. So we find that there are two types of Vaishnavas in this respect. There's what's called the Goshnanandis and Bhajananandis. So for those of you who don't know what that is, a Bhajananandi is someone who wants to simply go to Vrindavan, just like we were talking yesterday to some people. And, you know, some people in this room at one point had just wanted to go to Vrindavan and wait until they died, even though they were just like 30 years old. Retired to Vrindavan, because they had such a taste from Vrindavan. And then yesterday I was talking to someone else who was 50, he just thought, you know, the hell with this family, I'm just going to, a lady, just going to Vrindavan and just going to retire. And I asked her, you know, what about your children? Oh, they're Maya. What about your husband? He's Maya, and the husband's sitting there. Wait, what do you think about this? He can't say anything. So there's this misconception that many people have, is that, you know, you simply go to Vrindavan and execute devotional service for the rest of your life. But that's not the mode of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. That's the Bhajananandi mode, not the Goshnanandi mode. Goshnanandi is a preacher. So Prabhupada's mood, the mood of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and the mood of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and our acharyas in disciplic succession, is Goshnanandi, not Bhajananandi. So sometimes people ask me the question, you know, even yesterday the question came up about, you know, how do we get from Vaidhi to Raganuga? And my answer was, just try to serve and preach and please Krishna and please your spiritual master. And in this way, Krishna will take care of it. You don't have to worry about it. How am I going to get from Vaidhi? Of course, Vaidhi Bhakti means rules and regulations, and Raganuga Bhakti means spontaneous devotional service, but it means much more than that. It doesn't mean you're just spontaneous. It means you've actually understood what your relationship is with Krishna, whether you're a cowherd boy or a gopi or a servant of Krishna, or any of these different relationships. It means a lot more than that. You know, it means, you know, you understand your relationship, you understand the different aspects of the relationship, you know, what type of gopi you are, how you dress, what your service is to Radha and Krishna. It's actually called Ekadasha Bhava. It means there's 11 aspects of your personality or your activities that you understand in Raganuga. And then you start to enter into the Ashtakaliya Leela. So it's not simply that you're doing things spontaneously, it's you have an internal life. So that's a really elevated platform. And sometimes we find people, they want to jump up to be on that platform when they're completely unqualified. And Prabhupada said instead of becoming purified, they become putrefied if they try to do that. Because then they project their material conceptions upon the pastimes of the Absolute Truth, which cause offenses. So they actually become contaminated by that activity. So, you know, of course it's good to aspire, you know, when will I come to that platform, you know, Gauranga Balite Havi Pulakashavir, when upon chanting Gauranga will I actually feel quivering in my body and forget about this material world. That's good. But our method is not, let's say, the method of just meditating on that or trying to come to that point right now. Our method is actually to go out and we try to share Krishna consciousness with others. Haribol is to share Krishna consciousness with others and engage in these charitable activities that are mentioned here. And I was thinking about this in regard to the departure of Gopal Krishna Maharaj. Because even this morning I got a message from one of my disciples that really sort of reinforced this understanding in my mind. And this disciple, she's a Brajavasi, very nice devotee. And she wrote, Gopal Krishna Maharaj did so much service and was simply doing service. So why, I'm bewildered, why did Krishna arrange for him not to pass away in Vrindavan?
Mm.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
So there was this whole conception that, you know, you pass away in Vrindavan, you go back to Godhead, right?
Yes, yes.
No.
I mean, that's a conception.
That's a
That's
conception.
a conception.
Yeah, I didn't say
Yeah.
Yeah.
it is true. I mean, you pass away in Vrindavan, you go back to Godhead. I'm not denying that that's true.
Devotees are always in Vrindavan.
What?
Devotees are always in Vrindavan.
Who's a?
It's devotees.
I know. I can do the class.
Yeah.
Thank you very much
I know you're going
for your
to Wednesday.
purport. So, so anyway, so there was a point I was coming to, but I was going to lead up to that point.
Sorry.
Thank you. So, anyways, so anyway, so she asked this question, and I said, wherever a pure devotee is, that is Vrindavan. And then I cited the examples of some of our previous acharyas, like Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He didn't pass away in Mayapur or Vrindavan. He was in Calcutta. And we find that it was interesting that Srila Gaurkishore Babaji Maharaj, who was a Bhajananandi, would not even go to Calcutta to take care of his eyesight. There's this story that he was losing his eyesight, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur had arranged for someone in Calcutta, you know, a doctor in Calcutta, to take care of it. And he said, you know, you should go to Calcutta. And then Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj said, I will never go to that place of Kali.
Yeah.
And then Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, but I'll send Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur with you. And then Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, being so humble, he said, I will never take service from Prabhu. Prabhu, he even considered, this is the humility of a Bhajananandi. He even considered that his own disciple, his only disciple, was like Prabhu, master. And so he ran away at that. So Gaurkishore Babaji Maharaj just ran away and hid himself because he didn't want to actually take service from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he didn't want to go to Calcutta. So, you know, so there was... That's not wrong. I'm not criticizing him. But I'm saying that's the mood of a... that's the mood of a Bhajananandi. Whereas our mood, that we should have, is the mood that Srila Prabhupada showed when he was very sick and he wanted to go to London. And he said, give me the benediction of dying on the battlefields. You know, heroically on the battlefields. And so, basically with Srila Gopal Krishna Maharaj, we see the same thing. He was on the battlefield. He was sick. He had he had some accident and he fell down, and then he has bruises, and then he had his heart attack and everything like that, or heart problem. And so he left on the battlefield. That's more glorious, to leave on the battlefield and just simply go someplace and wait until one passes away. Now, I'm not criticizing people who go to Vrindavan to pass away. I think certainly if I had like 2 hours notice I'd go to Vrindavan. Devotees often ask me, when are you going to go to Vrindavan and retire? And I just say, when if I have a week or two notice, I may do that. But no longer than that. A month? No. Still have more opportunity to preach.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah, so that should be our mood. And so preaching is another point in this verse. Preaching doesn't mean like just blasting people and preaching. Preaching means, as Krishna Lila is experiencing, the 6 loving exchanges that are hinted at, mentioned in this verse. And actually Prabhupada is making an indirect reference to the Upadeshamrita verse. Dadati prati gurnati guyamakyati prichati bhumte bhojate chaiva. The 6 loving exchanges that Vaishnavas engage in. And Prabhupada said, by engaging these 6 loving exchanges, our Krishna consciousness movement expands. So the 6 loving exchanges are giving prasadam, accepting prasadam, giving gifts, accepting gifts, revealing the mind in confidence, and hearing from others in confidence, and also that includes, kirtan with others and social life. Just like I was listening to the program that she has, the outline of the program, we were talking about that last night, that there's the social time. And that's really important. There's the kirtan, there's the little class that's appropriate according to time, place, and circumstance, how to apply Krishna consciousness. The interesting thing is that a professional speaker will always make like 60 to 80% of their presentation related with application rather than just theory. So if you study you study professional speaking, you'll find that 80% is actually, 70, 80% has to be application, and usually end with application. Otherwise, it's just people can't relate to the story. Or it's a nice story, you tell the story of Radha and Krishna, you tell the story Sita Ram. Just like you have the Ramayana, and there's so many lessons we can learn from the Ramayana. For example, lessons like the loyalty between Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, Shatrughna, Sita's chastity. Amazing. Even the loyalty between Ravan and Kumbhakarna. Kumbhakarna knew it wasn't a good idea to fight with Ram, but he did it because of his loyalty to his brother. And same thing with Indrajit, knew that, Lakshman could not be defeated, but still he did it because of loyalty to his father. So you find all these different lessons. People read the Ramayana, but they but seldom do they actually take these lessons to heart. They want, in other words, this is a funny thing I always say, they want their wife to be like Sita Devi, but they're like Rama. So they wonder why their wife is like Durga instead of Sita. Because Prabhupada said, if you try to have Narayan, if you try to have Lakshmi without Narayan, you get Durga.
Very good.
So if they treat their wives like their servant and they're not Krishna conscious, then simply their wife will be a manifestation of Durga Devi. She likes that one.
She likes that one. It's like a vision of the trident coming in.
So the point I'm making is everything has to be applicable to the persons that we're talking to. And I really appreciated that yesterday, how Krishna Lila explained that she would make things like appropriate, applicable, and how people can use those things in their own lives. So this is how we should study Shastra. What can we learn? So this verse, is very important, and the previous verse is very important. All verses are important. So we should actually not differentiate between ourselves and other living entities, first of all, the previous verse. And secondly, we should have engaged in loving exchanges with each and every living entity according to what's appropriate with that particular living entity and that person's degree of Krishna consciousness. Everyone can be given Krishna consciousness to some degree or other. Of course, we should discriminate as Madhyama Adhikaris, that we should be careful of dealing with people who are inimical to Krishna consciousness. But an Uttama Adhikari does not discriminate like that. An Uttama Adhikari gives someone Krishna consciousness according to any circumstance, and that's what Prabhupada did as an Uttama Adhikari. So, any questions or comments about any of these points? Yes?
So, Gurudev, I always get confused with Uttamadhikaris, Madhyamadhikaris, and Goshyanandis and Bhajananandis. Like, quite often, some of the Vaishnavas, Uttamadhikaris more tend to be Bhajananandis. I mean, not.
Well, if someone is on the platform Uttama Adhikari, not only on it personally, but acting on the platform, then they're just doing bhajan at that point.
Okay.
But if someone is an Uttama Adhikari, and he, out of his compassion, he acts like a Madhyama Adhikari,
Okay.
then he's a Goshtananandi. But so, like Prabhupada is Parvajacharya Paramahansa, isn't it? Like we said, Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajacharya Ostotera. So Prabhupada is both. He's a Paramahansa, but he comes down, because there's the different stages of sannyas too, which are very, which can be connected with these different platforms of devotional service. Like in the first stage of sannyas, there's Bahudak and Gutichak, which is, first you take sannyas and you can't figure out how you're going to eat. So you stay in the same village, at the outskirts of the same village, and your wife sends you the food. You can't see your wife, but she sends you food through your son or some other relative like that. Then you figure out, well, maybe there's prasadam in everyone's house. Then you start to do madhukari, and then you get a little chapati at each person's house. And then after that, you start to wander everywhere. That's Parvajacharya. And you figure Krishna's going to take care of me. And then when you come to the platform of Paramahansa, you understand Krishna's taking care of you, but you don't even ask people for chapatis anymore. You just sit there like Madhavendra Puri. He never asked anyone for food. If people supplied, he would accept it. If people didn't supply, he wouldn't be taking prasadam until Krishna supplied his prasadam. Anyway, so... but if, for preaching purposes, that means Madhyamadhikari, or someone who's an Uttamadhikari stepping down voluntarily to fulfill the role of a Madhyamadhikari.
Thank you, Gurudev.
Okay. But Prabhupada is both.
Yeah.
Well, Prabhupada is Uttama Adhikari, Paramahansa, but he comes down out of compassion. Now, this is actually an amazing thing, if you think about it, that if you were on the topmost platform of devotional service, and all you had to do was just like chant, close your eyes, and you'd be absorbed in Krishna Lila, would you be willing to open your eyes and deal with us?
Compassion.
Their compassion.
Would you?
No,
No.
No.
I think so.
Yeah, because you're having such a good time.
Time.
You know, just like Krishna Lila wanted to stay in Vrindavan. And I said, that's nonsense. I remember telling her this in the airport. I said, I'm just going to Vrindavan. I said, that's nonsense. You just stay here and preach. What is this going to Vrindavan business? So, I mean, for most of us, just frankly, if just we were just absorbed in Krishna Lila and, you know, dancing, you know, gopi and cowherd boy, whatever, and there was some poor souls in Maya, you say, forget about the guy, you know. Not really. But it would be hard to come out of it.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to come out of that trance, you know, of devotion. So it's not that when Madhavendra Puri, he was just like chanting, and that he was feeling, I'm hungry, but I hope Krishna sends something. He wasn't thinking of it externally at all. In other words, there's no external consciousness. One is just like, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And so You're so happy, there's no consideration of anything in the material world. That's Paramahamsa. So how many of us, the question is how many of us would actually just like step down from that platform out of compassion? We could say, yes, I would. But when confronted by that situation, it's hard. Because when you come down, you got to deal with all these rascals, like Prabhupada had to deal with all those. Then you have to deal with people who are blooping and people who are doing so many crazy things. It's like that movie Going Back into the Matrix. Isn't it?
Yeah.
So, any other questions?
So Gurudev, just on that with Madhavendra Puri not feeling even the hunger, is that because the soul is then fully realized?
Yeah, he has no
It's not.
bodily consciousness. He's removed himself from that.
The soul isn't in need of any material food or anything like that, right?
Well, the soul doesn't, no.
Yeah.
But Krishna will send the food. Ananyas chintayanda vam yejanak paripasate tesham lijavayuktamam yogishem bahamyam. I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. Krishna says, for those who are completely dedicated. So, he's just like absorbed. Completely absorbed. He's not worried. I mean, I'd be worried. Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You're sitting on the banks of Govinda Kund chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. When is Krishna going to send
The
food?
stomach is grumbling.
Hey, Krishna. Yeah, the stomach goes.
But it's still beyond.
Yeah, I mean, so he's just like in ecstasy. And he's not even concerned. Leaving the body, it's okay. It's okay. If Krishna wants to starve me and I leave the body, that's fine. Because I'm just absorbed internally in the Ashtakaliya Leela, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You can't imagine the ecstasy that a pure devotee experiences when they're absorbed in the Ashtakaliya Leela. It's unbelievable. And Prabhupada was on that level. Yet Prabhupada came down because he was ordered by his spiritual master, he's ordered by Krishna to come down to this material world. Okay, on that happy note, we should continue. So I have to do my deity worship and then we have prasad. Thank you all for joining us. Always, Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai.
Right.